this is what we can expect. And Michael, you're in a position now where you don't have to sell your house. I don't have to sell mine. What we need to do is just be alert to disasters and be prepared for them. For example, this brings me to another. This is such a subject with so many ramifications, it's hard to hit on them. But luckily, as we talk, well, our minds are triggered, our memories are triggered as to various facets of this vast subject. And one thing, facet that comes to mind is the great threat of an East Coast tsunami that will wipe out Charleston, will wipe out me here in New Jersey. Although I'm fortunate, and I feel sorry for others, but I'm fortunate in the sense that Long Island and Staten Island are blocking a lot of that tsunami wave that would come in because I'm in northern New Jersey. But I would want to spend my time warning others that they need to prepare for this East Coast tsunami. I have the documentary from the great scientists, the geologists at the Open College in London, England, Dr. Simon Day and Dr. Bill McGuire, who have warned in documentaries, wonderful documentaries, one of which is called Mega Tsunami. You can look that up on YouTube. Please do, because it's so important, where they don't even know about Planet X, these geologists, Dr. Day and Dr. McGuire. But they're saying the Cumbre Vieja volcanic mountain is an island on the island of La Palma. It's a mountain which constitutes the entire island of La Palma. It's called the Cumbre Vieja volcanic mountain. And in 1949, a split occurred on the western flank, along the western flank, such that that western flank is completely separated from the mountain proper. And water is building up in that extinct volcano, such that when a volcano begins to erupt, the heat from the magma will definitely, they tell us it will definitely heat up the water that is trapped in those many, many fissures within the crack, the separation of the western flank. And when that water heats up, as you know, water pressure is unstoppable. Steam will be created and will push out, break open, separate that already separated 500 billion ton western flank. That's what they tell us the weight of it is. 500 billion tons western flank of the Cumbre Vieja in the Canary Islands off the west coast of Africa in the Atlantic Ocean. It will slide into the ocean, and they're telling us the entire scenario because they've done it in microcosm. They've done in laboratory experiments, small-scale experiments with large objects sliding into a large body of water in a laboratory, and they've calculated that the tsunami that will result, the first splash of that 500 billion ton western flank into the Atlantic Ocean would be like the height of 2 Empire State Buildings stacked one atop the other. Then it would level out because in the deep ocean the wave height will level out, and there will be not much threat to shipping in those deep oceans. But it will travel at a speed, and this is all their calculations, not mine, at a speed of 450 miles an hour, which is faster than a jet, and it would reach faster than a passenger jet. This wave would reach the east coast of the Americas in 8 hours. It would also reach England and Portugal and Spain, in less than 8 hours. When it reaches the East Coast, its height, they estimate, would be, I think it's at least 30 stories high. And it would devastate and wipe out, depending upon the terrain, it would wipe out areas inland as far as 12 miles inland along the east coast of the U.S. That means Boston, New York would be wiped out, destroyed. Charleston, Norfolk, Virginia, Miami, especially Miami, because of its low altitude, all of them would be destroyed, even South America, even the east coast of South America. Now, we don't have much warning, actually, because even the buoys out there, the buoys can detect a tsunami, but you've got, 8 hours? That's not enough time. It's going to be less than 8 hours. If people are asleep at 3 o'clock in the morning, who's going to tell them? What sirens are going to wake them up and say, hey, there's a tsunami coming? They won't even know what the siren means if the sirens sound They won't even wonder to figure, well, is it a fire, or is it a tornado, or what's going on here?
Well, and
they'll be dead before they even get out of their beds.
Well, yeah, and I'll tell you something else, John, that most people, and I know this, 'cause here, when there is a tornado warning or something along them lines, most people say, it's never happens, it's not going to happen. And they're crazy for thinking that, because it happens.
That's right. A lot of people have been saved, and I've seen it on the Weather Channel, because they were awakened by their weather radio, or if they were lucky enough to have the TV on, they got a warning, and they were saved because they rushed down to the basement, where they went to an center closet under the stairwell. In my basement, I have a closet area. Well, it's encased in sheetrock, which is not much, but at least it's an inner room. And they went down there, and they survived when the rest of the house was collapsed. So yeah, you have to have a weather radio. I have to set my weather radio, which I haven't done yet, to the right channel and all that. It stays on constantly, but it doesn't make any sound until there's an emergency, and then it starts squawking. So you got to do things like that. And also, weather flooding, Michael, what you can do and what I need to do. Well, I'm in pretty good altitude, but for those people, and there are many of them across the country who are susceptible to flooding, epic flooding, and they should have rafts. They should have pontoon rafts or any kind of flotation devices, even those life vests that are activated and inflated by CO2 cartridge. You pull the cord, and the cartridge instantly inflates the raft. We talked about this in the last show that we had together, Michael, where people should have these in their car, because you could find yourself, even the safest driver who turns around not to drown, can find himself in a flash flood in a matter of minutes. The car's floating. He's about to die, and he has to get out of the car. So, roll down the window before the battery is killed by the flooding, and put on your life vest and get out of there. That could save your life just by carrying a couple of life vests in the car for you and your passengers, things like that. So we have to think proactively about flooding, avoiding floods, and all kinds of disasters.
Yeah, absolutely, we do.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, I'm sorry. I paused for a moment because I heard a little static in the headphones, and I'll be damned if it didn't sound just like that water again. I thought it was happening again, but no, it's just something in the headphones. Thank God. But folks, I've sent over Ira a few pictures. Two of them are from right now, from in the studio. And at some point, I think he'll throw them in there if he gets around to it. He's busy, so he might or he might not. I can't do it right now, so otherwise I would. But I do have more pictures of like Planet X and these UFO pics too that have been being worked on. I'll get those ready for tomorrow night so I could share them in the chat room as well. And John, we have another call here, so I'm gonna take it. I'm trying here. Okay, there we go. 814 area code. Who we got? Where are you calling from?
This is Chuck from Meadville, Pennsylvania.
Well, welcome aboard, Chuck.
Hi, Chuck.
Yeah, I just wanted to... Hi, how you doing, John?
Fine, thanks.
Say hi to you and Michael and Ira on the other line if he's still there. If not, he's in the background somewhere.
He actually hung up, but yeah, thanks for the call too, Ira.
Anyhow, I just wanted to mention a little bit more proof on your thing. The Illuminati people, or whatever you want to call them, celebrate this black sun, and they're not talking about our sun going dark or anything like that. And also, a picture of Isis, or a statue of Isis, that goddess from Egypt or whatever she's from, has a set of bull horns, kind of like the Taurus bull, with a black sun in the center. Some people call it other things, whatever, energy or whatever. Basically, it's the black sun, or what you're talking about is the nemesis, or whatever you want to call it, that star that's coming into our system. And I was listening on, it's kind of, I don't know, coincidental, or if you want to call it coincidence, another show that was talking about Planet X, and it's supposed to be from the tribulationtechnow.org by the non-human entities.
Would you repeat the name of that website again?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure that's where it came from, but that's what it was listed underneath. Tribulation or tac now.org, and it was aired by the non-human entities. And I didn't get the guy's name, and I tried to go back to get it, but I can't get the thing to restart. and it was aired supposedly December 3rd of this year. And he mentioned about it going to be coming through the Taurus bullhorns. Of course, we're talking the star system. And then I see that picture or that statue of Isis with the bullhorns and the black sun in the middle. And like I say, coincidence, maybe once, but just twice. And then I click back to your show earlier than normal because I listen to Hagman also. And you come on the air about this, and I'm going, 3 times in a row talking about this. And it just so happens, I page through the internet all day. I'm on disability, so I ain't got nothing better to do. But it's really something different.
I remember seeing, occult, and maybe Michael, too, has seen occult references to Planet X. And, that reminds me that they, even going back into ancient history, they called it the evil elite in ancient times, called it Marduk, this Planet X, which was, they considered it a god. And if you look at the great archaeologists and anthropologists who just passed away, Zechariah Sitchin, he mentions that kind of he has those references in his book, The 12th Planet, where he talks about Marduk, and the diabolical elite actually have, I haven't studied it real intensely, but there's so much occult in their rituals, which they believe gives them power. And this could be one of them. Marduk is what they worship. They make it an object of worship as they worship Satan in order to keep their power, and in order that they believe, falsely, will protect them if they worship these evil occult entities who they falsely believe represent this great dwarf star, which I know is being brought in by God. So you're right. I mean, there's occult references that we need to study, because when we see the diabolical ruling elites occult references today, we then get clues as to what they're up to and what they're expecting, and how that would jibe with what we're seeing coming in, and how that would jibe with what the astronomers, the independent astronomers at the great observatory, the largest observatory on planet Earth, have just recently reported. And this is the big news of this show, is that Planet X, they say Planet X has been sighted. And that reminds me, your question reminds me that what happened was there was, to show me greater evidence and to support their their sighting of this Planet X at the Atacama Large Meter Array, that's ALMA as an acronym, observatory in Chile. What gives greater support to the observers and to students of this subject is that the diabolical ruling elite instantly reacted with a hatchet job, a hit piece, a critical, snide, sloppy slander, smear of the sighting by these astronomers. And that leads you to believe that there's no reason for the elite in their organ of disinformation, the Washington Post. There's no reason for them to discredit. Why should they discredit it?
Well, that's what they do first. They try to discredit. If not, they try to warn. And then if not, well, we all know what follows after that. It's not worth talking about because no one's around to hear it then. But
That's right. Yeah, so they know that they're going underground. The evidence is all there. The London Daily Mail has reported that they are going deep into the bowels of Cheyenne Mountain in their great, vast underground city there, and also in the bowels of Mount Weather in West Virginia. They're descending underground. Alex Jones had some emergency reports, which I have put on my YouTube channel and my Vimeo channel, where Alex Jones got under. He said, look, this is an emergency report I have. He made 2 of them in this year, 2015. One emergency report in June, I believe, and then another in September, October, yeah. And he said, this is my second emergency report. They're verifying that the elite are going underground. They're buying redoubts and underground habitations in New Zealand, and they're disappearing, and something's going on here. I don't know what it is. And of course, you can expect a nuclear war. You can expect a major war, because they're like saboteurs, these diabolical ruling elite. They will throw a grenade into a crowd, and they'll duck for cover after they throw it, waiting for the explosion and making sure that they themselves are safe. That's what they're going to do with this nuclear war that they're planning. They're going underground. They don't want to be nuked, and the way they're going to escape the nuclear war is to be underground where they're protected. I have information from a renegade CIA person. I think I can mention her name, and her name's on the internet already. It's Dr. Susan Arrigo, Arrigo. A number of years ago, a journalist. Hold on 1 second, please.
Okay, and Ira's back with us as well. So, was that John who said hold on? Oh, okay.
I'm back. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I had to leave the phone. I would say about 2007. I would say about 7 years ago. A journalist friend of mine told me that she was contacted by this Dr. Susan Arrigo, who used to be with the CIA, and she had told her. Dr. Susan Arrigo was a renegade. She had left the CIA, and I think she was essentially on the run. I hope she's still alive. She had told her that they were trying to start a war in Iran by provoking Iran with bombings and things like that, or terrorist acts, and that they were going to trigger this war. It was going to be a nuclear war, but they were prepared. The diabolical ruling elite were prepared to go underground to escape the nuclear disaster above ground. Mm-hmm. And then they were going to come up after the dust had cleared and the radioactive fallout was still around, but everything else was like the world would be devastated by a nuclear winter, and there would be maybe just a small remnant of humankind left alive. They would come up, ascend from their underground cities. And I was told then that they have, the elite have this technology, which I believe, because I've seen other reports of it, technology where they can actually decontaminate and neutralize radioactive fallout, radioactive contamination in a small area of the Earth.
And John, I'll say this, I would think that these underground facilities, these bunkers, and they got so much under there. There's tunnels, roads, cities, farms, you name it. And I think much of this is to survive something like a nuclear war. I think they'd be naive to think that they can survive something like a Planet X.
No, they won't.
Yeah,
in fact, you're right, Michael, because, see, they have no other choice. This is what I've always said. People say, well, you know, how could this be true? Why are they going underground if they can't survive underground? Well, they have no choice. They've been thinking about going into the International Space Station to go up in space for a time, but you're going to get fried up in space because there's going to be so much electrical discharge from the plasma-drenched objects coming in, from the plasma discharges that are excited within our solar system when this object comes in, that anything like satellites are going to get zapped and fried, vaporized, and it's going to be unsafe there. They know that. Their scientists tell them that. They have to go underground because, you see, they know that Earth's surface is going to get unbearably hot, such that life will be destroyed. A great amount of life will be destroyed. So they have no choice but to go underground where it's very unsafe. But yet, if they stay on ground, they'll be fried. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say Earth is already getting hot. You know, the supposed global warming thing. The electromagnetic is already getting heated up. This happened before in history. Everything else, and the Indians did survive before. They were taken underground by some kind of entity. You know, but they were brought back up. But that was a different time. You know, it was during the flood, I guess, or whatever.
And you know what I'm finding, I'm sorry, Ira, one thing here. What I'm finding, though, with this whole the Earth is warming thing is that they've refused to follow any of the data from the satellite images, which actually show that the Earth hasn't warmed at all in 25 years. And I mean, this is real. You could go, I'm not saying which one's more accurate, but I would think the satellites are. What do you think, Ira?
Well, I was just going to add in that, you're correct on the fact that Native Americans talk about the fact that they were saved by going underground. They actually went underground. They were prompted to go underground by the Great Spirit, and they were taken care of underground by what they refer to as the ant people. And then when the time came to be able to come back up and rebirth up into the new world, basically, the ant people helped them to get up and start surviving. So just kind of an interesting little toss out there.
Yeah, the praying
The
mantis.
American Indians were very spiritual, and even though they knew nothing about the Bible, they were so close to the creation and to nature that they actually could feel the presence of God. Many of them, and as a result, I think they were protected by God, spirits of God, angels. This has happened in the past where people chosen by God, or most people are chosen by God, are protected. So, yeah, I believe that the Indians were protected.
All right. Anything else, caller?
Oh, no, thank you. Thank you for taking my call, and you have a good night.
Absolutely.
Thanks for the info.
Yeah, thank you very much for the call, and thank you for listening. And Ira, anything else?
Yeah, the reason why I was calling back actually was when you were talking about the elites in regards to the sun and the black sun and all that kind of stuff. It reminded me actually of a bit of research that I've done, where a lot of these different corporations and other entity out there, they have this big focus on their symbology being related to the sun. And from what I can find out, basically it's kind of like in regards to something that they call the dawning of the new sun, or the dawning of the new day, basically, or the new dawn. And I wonder if there is a relation to this stuff to what you're discussing here with the Planet X and all of the other things that are going on with it, basically.
Well, let's see now. The new sun, according to the Bible, prophecy given by the Son of God, the sun will become, this is in the book of Revelation now, at some point, the sun will become extremely hot, blazing hot, such that everyone on the surface will be scrambling to go underground to escape the heat. And, it will eventually come, the destruction of the earth will ramp up to such a point in so many disastrous ways, with earthquakes, etc., that virtually no life will be able to exist except, and this is what I prayed about, because it has to be understood through spiritual prayer and communion with God. In the Bible, it's not specifically stated in the book of Revelation, but the ones who will survive the destruction of the earth are the ones who will be taken up at the very end, when the earth undergoes complete destruction. Now, taken up would be in terms of the spirit, not the body. The body would be left behind, and the spirit would be taken up in an instant, in a twinkling of an eye, according to the scriptures. And that can happen when, for example, we have electricity, a lightning bolt, a transmission of energy occurs at the speed of light. Radio waves travel at the speed of light. The spirit of the body, I infer and intuitively feel that the spirit of the body transmits upward toward God at a particular time in our lives when the life is over. It's transmitted upward at the speed of light. And those are the ones who survive. Their spirits survive. Their bodies left behind like a cocoon of a butterfly leaving the cocoon. Mm-hmm. And they take on a new body. I know it's strange to us because we don't experience this in our physical life, but this is the metaphysics that are being proven, being shown by advanced studies, such as the study of other dimensions and the spirit of the body. It's just amazing. But that reminds me of I actually videotaped these true stories from a series that I can no longer find on the Destination America channel. Okay, thank goodness I
John, hold that thought for a moment, just for a moment. We got to take our last break. The truth, as we do so often here, but we also get into expanding the mind. And I'm not tied back. I could say what needs to be said. I could say what I want because I have no ties to nobody. We're independent. We truly are, and we're keeping it that way. Even though several through the years have tried to get their grip on us. And it's not that we think we're the best. We just know that we're the most truthful. We're not influenced. We don't go along to get along. And, so let's get back to it with my guest, John DiNardo. And I hope you'll continue to support us at latenightinthemidlands.com. John, so you say that they said they found it. This is a recent report?
Yes, it was earlier this month. In fact, just maybe about a week or two ago. All you have to do is go to your search engine and type in the acronym ALMA, which stands for Atacama. That's ATACAMA. 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 You can type in that word also. Large Meter Array Observatory. Or you could just type in the acronym ALMA, ALMA. That observatory is the largest telescope on planet Earth. It's a radio telescope, which picks up the spectrum, electromagnetic spectrum of the subvisible light energy, the magnetic energy that comes from electromagnetic energy that's emanated from distant objects. When they emit infrared light, for example, infrared is electromagnetic energy. It's of the same type of magnetic energy of radio waves and television waves. So this array of 66 antennas, receiving antennas, constitutes the largest telescope on Earth. And they have said in the article, and I can paraphrase it, we think we have discovered Planet X. They actually mentioned it in the article. You'll see it reported in the London Daily Mail, I believe. You can look that up.
Okay.
And so it's out there. Now, the evidence that we see, that they've actually found it, the evidence that I notice, and we all should notice, is that the diabolical ruling elite have instantly, in a knee-jerk reaction, attacked these astronomers, these independent, sincere, honest astronomers who are not tied to any government funding whatsoever. And why would they attack these astronomers unless they were afraid of something? The Washington Post, which is the organ of disinformation of the diabolical ruling elite, it's owned by the Graham family, Catherine Graham, infamous Council on Foreign Relations member. They had this Sarah Kaplan, a sloppy journalist, let's say a hatchet-wielding journalist.
I see. Just to cut in for a second, John. Now, some would say, I have had many tell me, well, NASA, they call any planet that they've just discovered and not given a name, they call it Planet X, and that's what they'll say.
Well, they would say it's a Planet X, but in this case, they said we think we have discovered Planet X.
I see.
And I don't believe anyone that insinuation that any newly planet discovered would be called a Planet X. No, I don't believe that, because it's why then would the elite have buried the term Planet X ever since 1983, when the NSA became quite secretive? The diabolical ruling elite who control the National Security Agency became so secretive and concerned about reportage regarding Planet X that the name was banned. You did not see that name anymore. So I don't believe that insinuation that the term Planet X refers to any planet generically, newly discovered.
And one other thing I want to run by you, too, because some tell me that if you don't talk about this, then, that's how they could determine whether you're real or not. So, me, honestly, I'm going to say it, I find it almost laughable, okay? I'm just going to put it out there. I do, and you could say maybe I'm brainwashed, because who knows, maybe I am. But flat Earth, John, they're telling me that the Earth is flat. What say you on that?
The Earth. Who's telling you that the Earth is flat?
There's people who are telling me that if guys like you and I don't talk about flat Earth, then we're not real. So should we be talking about this?
I don't talk about flat Earth. No,
I don't mean to offend anybody out there who does. I'm sorry, but nobody has given me that type of evidence. I get messages from people talking about
well, look at the photographs, the films of planet Earth from space, from space and from the International Space Station.
Well, that's just it.
It's proof right there.
I think that it's been canned, I think, a long time ago. And I'm not saying it because I don't want to believe it. It's just, I don't know. Somebody sent me a video and says that if this don't convince me, nothing will. And I'll tell you what, I couldn't watch but maybe 8 minutes of it, and I had to turn it off because the guy was it was incredibly just I couldn't watch it. But
yeah, you can't. You can't allow you can't allow this information coming from any area. Or at least we can tolerate anyone's free speech, but we also have the right to respond.
Right.
So, for example, we talk about the photographs from space that show that the Earth is not flat. We also, if you stand on the shore and watch a ship going out to sea, does that ship, if you had a telescope, if the Earth were flat, you'd be able to see that ship at great distances away, wouldn't you? But you can't, because the ship appears to sink below the horizon as it gets farther out. Doesn't it? That indicates that there's a curvature to the Earth.
Yeah, I agree. You're not getting no disagreement from me. But there's people who, and they get mad because, I chop them at the bit quick on it, because I'll go as far with the Planet X and even bases on the moon, and the moon might be hollow. Okay, I'll go there. But flat Earth, I think it's been proven without a shadow of a doubt that we've got somewhat round rocks floating in space. That's me. If you could prove me wrong, by all means, contact me, but have real evidence, and I know you're not going to have it because it just don't exist, but I'd be glad to entertain it. But it's all it is entertainment for me. Anyways.
At least you give them the freedom to express themselves.
Well, yeah,
and
exactly.
then just let it go at that. I wanted to get back to this
Sure.
New York Times landmark article that I began reading it from January 30th, because I want to present further scientific evidence that this brown dwarf star exists. And the title of the article, again, I'll just go over it briefly, is Clues Get Warm in the Search for Planet X. They're talking about not a Planet X, but the Planet X, by John Noble Wilford, January 30th, 1983, New York Times. Now, their article states that ever since the 1800s, astronomers noticed perturbations or a plucking of the outer planets Uranus and Neptune from their revolutions around the sun, eccentricities that could only be explained by a large, unseen gravitational body pulling at these planets at some point in their revolutionary path around the sun. So quite logical. So they logically theorized that there's a large planet out there, which was discovered in discovered by NASA, which in the way of sending out the Pioneer 10 space probe, which I described before, which was to feel a gravitational pull by this unseen body at some point, at the point where they calculated that this unseen gravitational body existed. And they never told us, because they keep it secret, they never told us the results of the Pioneer 10 trajectory perturbation, which would have proven that the gravitational body indeed was there. We were never told about that. No. Why not? Because they knew that there was a perturbation. They didn't want us to know about Planet X. However, the NSA was not quite as suppressive and didn't have the knowledge at the time to suppress NASA. When NASA in 1983, January, New York Times said, quote, recent calculations by the United States Naval Observatory have confirmed the orbital perturbation exhibited by Uranus and Neptune, which Dr. Thomas C. Van Flandern, an astronomer at the observatory, says could be explained by a single undiscovered planet. He and colleague Dr. Robert Harrington calculate that the 10th planet should be 2 to 5 times more massive than Earth. And incidentally, I don't know why they said that, because it's got to be much, much larger than that, and I'll show you why later on in this article. It should be 2 to 5 times more massive than Earth and have a highly elliptical orbit. That is correct, because we talked about that, like the tennis ball being batted back and forth between two suns on a celestial tennis court. If a tennis ball is batted back and forth, its trajectory is certainly going to have a highly stretched out elliptical orbit going back and forth from one tennis player to the next. Anyway, they say this Dr. Harrington and Dr. Van Flandern say it has a highly elliptical orbit that takes it some 5 billion miles beyond that of Pluto. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is a key quote. This is very important for us to ponder. Takes it 5 billion miles beyond Pluto, hardly next door, but still within the gravitational influence of the sun. So what that means is that if it's within the gravitational influence of the sun at 5 billion miles away, which is where it was back then in 1983, a third of a century ago, it must still be within the gravitational influence of the sun right now, only much closer.
Right.
That is, if it has a highly elliptical orbit, you see. It's got those two facts together. If it has a highly elliptical orbit coming in, and it is within the gravitational influence of the sun, according to basic physics, which is indisputable, it must be continually, right now, at this time, being pulled in by our sun gravitationally. This is an undeniable fact of physics, and I, as a former high school physics teacher, can tell you that. I'm sorry, Michael.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that we've only got a few minutes left. This night has flown by. So if you could spend the next few minutes, obviously at the end, go ahead and plug whatever you'd like. But in the next few minutes, if you could kind of explain to us where it might be and when you expect to get the worst from it.
Well, the astronomers at the Atacama Large Meteor Array in Chile recently, within the last couple of weeks, said that it's out near the heliosphere of our solar system, which is way out there beyond Pluto. And I can imagine where it would be out there because it has come in, well, I won't go into details because we don't have a lot of time, but it has come in below the ecliptic, according to Dr. Harrington, the late and murdered Dr. Robert S. Harrington. I think we could say that safely because many observers have shown us that Dr. Harrington was about to reveal to the world that he had sighted this object, and it was indeed coming toward our solar system, and that's why they killed him. He died of cancer very quickly when he had promised to tell the world reveal his telescopic findings, which were being processed. Okay, so Dr. Harrington was murdered. Anyway, he said it comes in from the south below our ecliptic plane, which means it's going to overshoot the sun and go out and make a huge U-turn underneath the ecliptic and up and over the planets, which is way out there near the heliosphere. So I can imagine why it would make such a huge U-turn. It would slow down in that U-turn, just like a car slows down in its U-turn. But then as the sun begins to pull it back again over the top of the ecliptic plane, toward the sun again, passing over Earth's orbit, passing over the outer planet's orbit, passing over, that's where it seems to be about ready to do now. It's about ready to pass over the top of the orbital paths of the outer planets and then come into over the top of the orbital paths of the inner planets, Mars, Earth, Venus, Mercury, and the Sun, etc. And as it does, it's going to become close enough to cause gravitational and magnetic molestations of planet Earth. Anyway, Dr. Morita was murdered. I got to tell you this is so key. Okay. Dr. Morita was a famed, eminent, world-class astronomer from Japan. Several years ago, when the Atacama, the ALMA observatory, which we're talking about now, which just released this report of sighting Planet X, that was being constructed. The diabolical ruling elite were so concerned about these independent astronomers finding Planet X. You know what they did? They actually had Dr. Morita, the chief astronomer of the ALMA observatory under construction, they had him beaten to death to terrorize. You can see the article. Just look up Morita, M-O-R-I-T-A. Do a search.
I don't doubt
that name, along with ALMA, A-L-M-A Observatory. Just type in those words, Morita, ALMA Observatory, and you'll find out he was beaten to death.
And John, we can go about another 5-10 minutes over if need be. I don't want to rush you. I want to know what we can. So, but I wanted to add to that and say that these a lot of these holistic healers, along with scientists and God knows who else, have been getting knocked off.
Exactly. That's a good point. Dr. Teresa Sievers, a wonderful, beautiful physician in Florida, was beaten to death recently, this year, 2015. And Dr. Jeffrey Bradstreet was shot to death, shot in the chest and thrown into the river by these diabolical ruling elite from Big Pharma, etc., because of natural findings that they were coming up with. I don't know the exact details of it, but it related to cancer cures. And that's what they do. They beat Dr. Sievers to death, this beautiful woman. When they do that, they do it to terrorize others. You see, if the person just dies of a natural causes, they could do that too. They can give them cancer. but they want to terrorize everyone else who might speak out. And that's what they did with Dr. Morita, the chief astronomer of the under construction at that time ALMA Observatory. And they figured, well, we're going to terrorize all these other astronomers from around the world, from various nations that were joining together at the ALMA Observatory. Astronomers from Korea, from Japan, from the U.S., from other countries too. Independent astronomers. The diabolical ruling elite hate that because they don't want the public to know, or when the public knows that this planet is coming in to cause great devastation to Earth, then people lose their fear and obedience to the diabolical ruling elite, and they become independent and to go into survival mode, which is what we should all be doing right now. The elite don't want us to do that. They want to go underground and watch us die.
And on the 28th, you brought up survival. I'm actually doing a show on the 28th with a guest who's been on the show before, but we didn't talk about survival. He's coming on to discuss survival, Richard Lowe Jr. He'll be coming on to discuss surviving whatever might come in the next year, because it's picking up. And, that's all I'm going to say. I've told people World War III had already started, and, it would appear that I was right. I mean, look, there's more and more conflict happening, and, it's who knows what could happen. Suitcase nukes, and I ain't not trying to scare anybody. I'm just saying that, these are very real possibilities, and everybody... A lot of times people think, well, everything's fake, it's all made up, and I'll tell you what, you're giving the cabal too much credit, because they will sacrifice you, they will blow you up or shoot you to make a point and to get their agenda ahead. And so you should never underestimate, while an event might be staged per se, they may be planning on it, they're still killing people. I mean, don't think that they don't.
Exactly. And the brave, thoughtful, insightful people will believe us and are believing us, and they will prepare. And we leave the fearful, the ones who have cognitive dissonance, who do not want to believe the truth because they're afraid. They fall by the wayside. We don't care about them. We care about the people who do care and who believe it and want to warn others. So that's fine. We don't need 100% acceptance. We just need the good people, like the Marine Corps. We need a few good men. Well, we're looking for all those good people with good hearts. And real quickly, if we have a minute, I just wanted to show you more evidence from the New York Times article of 1983, where these astronomers, Dr. Harrington, who was murdered by the diabolical ruling elite because he was about to announce his findings, his sightings in 1993, Dr. Harrington and others, they're saying, quote, more credence was given to the hypothesis that a brown dwarf star accounts for this mysterious pulling force on the outer planets. Okay, so there you go, right there. All the astronomers of the day of 1983 say that this is probably a brown dwarf star. Now, if you look at the definition of a brown dwarf star in any astronomy book, you can find it on the internet. The puniest brown dwarf star is about at least 1,000 Earth masses. Imagine that, 1,000 Earth masses, 1,000 Earths clumped together. And when it comes by, so now the scientists tell us it's probably a brown dwarf star. All the people who are reporting on it today, many of them are scientists, are saying it's a brown dwarf star. The astronomers at Chile, they tried to intimidate by beating to death the lead astronomer, but it hasn't worked yet. They report that it's probably a brown dwarf star. You can check out this latest report, and this latest report is really the powerful impetus for us to start preparing, because it's being cited, and it's going to be cited by other observatories. It's bee swarm. The bee swarm from this brown dwarf beehive is coming in right now. That's the first danger we have to face, is the bee swarm surrounding the beehive. Now, this bee swarm consists of comets, asteroids, and meteors. Earth is in danger, great danger of asteroids right now. I mean, it cannot even hide the danger anymore. You're hearing it all over the place. You're hearing it on all the science channels that we are threatened by asteroids. And they try to cover up with such, for the layman who doesn't understand. For those of us who understand, we could see their lies. I was looking at a H2 History Channel report on the asteroid threat. In fact, I video or DVD recorded it. And what they're saying in there is, gee, there's more asteroids in our solar system than we thought. Well, that's a lie. I mean, the fact is that they knew there were a certain density of asteroids for many, many decades. And now the number of asteroids has increased drastically. They're not telling you that. They're lying in a feeble way with a sloppy lie that that must be noticed by anyone who studies the subject. That it's not that they just never noticed the asteroids before. It's just that the density of asteroids has drastically increased in recent years, and that's because this beehive is coming into our solar system, being pulled in by our sun's great gravitational force field, and the bee swarm around it is becoming ever dense. And you watch, we're seeing more strikes, more meteor strikes. We had a massive meteor strike in the nation of Iran back in July. That was covered up by the media. I proved that it was covered up in my reports. I posted numerous reports to prove it. They said, one person, even related, a wife of a Planet X researcher said, oh, that's a hoax. There was no meteor strike in Iran. And I proved that she was wrong by posting the actual videotape that I found on YouTube of Iranian journalists going into the field where the meteor struck, and they were pulling the asteroid out of the ground and holding it right up to the camera. And, of course, it was reported in the Italian press, but you could not find it anywhere in the U.S., and just because this wife of this Planet X researcher, she couldn't find it. She declared that it doesn't exist just because she couldn't find evidence of the meteor strike. I proved it by showing her the video evidence, and I posted it in one of my articles, one of my reports. Well, the point is that meteors are striking Earth more frequently now, and we're in danger of being struck by an asteroid. When that happens, you have dust clouds, you have dislocation of society. Okay, the bottom line is prepare. Get your water. Now, I have so many empty water bottles that I have collected. My wife is frustrated because I have all these empty water plastic bottles from ketchup, soda. I mean, I don't drink soda, but once in a while they buy juice bottles, any plastic bottle. I rinse it out, fill it up with water, stack it up in my basement. And that's what you got to do, because lack of water is the first thing that will cause death.
Well, yeah, I mean, quicker than not having food, that's
exactly.
for sure. So, but John, we are getting down low on time here, and I don't want to screw the schedule up too bad on Ira. We're kind of cutting into the next show right now, but I thank you so much for being here tonight, and of course we'll kick off another show in 2016. That's for sure. Probably somewhere near the end of January, maybe we could do this again, and maybe sooner. Depends. I mean, because if somebody cancels out, you and a few others are usually the first ones I contact to bring back in. So
I'm happy to have been with you and your audience, Michael.
Thank you. And anything you want to get out there before we finish up tonight?
No, that's all. I think we've cut into enough time already. I've said it all, and we'll talk more about survival. That's the main thing. And spiritual connection to God, who can protect us.
And where would you suggest people go for the best survival tips? I mean, you've been around, you look into this stuff. Where would you send people? There's
so many. I would say just about any of them. Just pick out a variety of survival tips from a variety of survival sources. Because we've got so many disasters, such as flooding and tornado protection, etc. Look at all the disasters that we are now prone to feeling, and you can then begin to plan for these disasters with a variety of preparations, mainly food and water. Water is the main thing. Just fill up water bottles, get essential oils for health, and get silver germicide to prevent disease along with your essential oils. But this water and the storable foods and seeds are so important. Absolutely. Well, John, thank you again. And until next time, have a very Merry Christmas and a really, really good New Year. 2016 is upon us. This is what we can expect. And Michael, you're in a position now where you don't have to sell your house. I don't have to sell mine. What we need to do is just be alert to disasters and be prepared for them. For example, this brings me to another. This is such a subject with so many ramifications, it's hard to hit on them. But luckily, as we talk, our minds are triggered, our memories are triggered as to various facets of this vast subject. And one facet that comes to mind is the great threat of an East Coast tsunami that will wipe out Charleston, will wipe out me here in New Jersey. Although I'm fortunate, and I feel sorry for others, but I'm fortunate in the sense that Long Island and Staten Island are blocking a lot of that tsunami wave that would come in because I'm in northern New Jersey. But I would want to spend my time warning others that they need to prepare for this East Coast tsunami. I have the documentary from the great scientists, the geologists at the Open College in London, England, Dr. Simon Day and Dr. Bill McGuire, who have warned in documentaries, wonderful documentaries, one of which is called Mega Tsunami. You can look that up on YouTube. Please do, because it's so important, where they don't even know about Planet X, these geologists, Dr. Day and Dr. McGuire. But they're saying the Cumbre Vieja volcanic mountain is an island on the island of La Palma. It's a mountain which constitutes the entire island of La Palma. It's called the Cumbre Vieja volcanic mountain. And in 1949, a split occurred on the western flank, along the western flank, such that that western flank is completely separated from the mountain proper. And water is building up in that extinct volcano, such that when a volcano begins to erupt, the heat from the magma will definitely, they tell us it will definitely heat up the water that is trapped in those many, many fissures within the crack, the separation of the western flank. And when that water heats up, as you know, water pressure is unstoppable. Steam will be created and will push out, break open, separate that already separated 500 billion ton western flank. That's what they tell us the weight of it is. 500 billion tons. Western flank of the Cumbre Vieja in the Canary Islands off the west coast of Africa in the Atlantic Ocean. It will slide into the ocean, and they're telling us the entire scenario because they've done it in microcosm. They've done in laboratory experiments, small-scale experiments with large objects sliding into a large body of water in a laboratory, and they've calculated that the tsunami that would result, the first splash of that 500 billion ton western flank into the Atlantic Ocean would be like the height of 2 Empire State Buildings stacked one atop the other. Then it would level out because in the deep ocean, the wave height will level out, and there will be not much threat to shipping in those deep oceans. But it will travel at a speed, and this is all their calculations, not mine, at a speed of 450 miles an hour, which is faster than a jet, and it would reach faster than a passenger jet. This wave would reach the east coast of the Americas in 8 hours. It would also reach England and Portugal and Spain. In less than 8 hours. When it reaches the East Coast, its height, they estimate, would be, I think it's at least 30 stories high. And it would devastate and wipe out, depending upon the terrain, it would wipe out areas inland as far as 12 miles inland along the east coast of the U.S. That means Boston, New York would be wiped out, destroyed. Charleston, Norfolk, Virginia, Miami, especially Miami, because of its low altitude. All of them would be destroyed, even South America, even the east coast of South America. Now, we don't have much warning, actually, because even the buoys out there, the buoys can detect a tsunami, but you've got, 8 hours? That's not enough time. It's going to be less than 8 hours. If people are asleep at 3 o'clock in the morning, who's going to tell them? What sirens are going to wake them up and say, hey, there's a tsunami coming? They won't even know what the siren means if the sirens sound. They won't even wonder to figure, well, there's a fire, or is it a tornado, or what's going on here?
Well,
they'll be dead before they even get out of their beds.
Well, yeah, and I'll tell you something else, John, that most people, and I know this because here, when there is a tornado warning or something along them lines, most people say, it's never happens, it's not going to happen. And they're crazy for thinking that because it happens.
That's right. A lot of people have been saved, and I've seen it on the Weather Channel, because they were awakened by their weather radio or if they're lucky enough to have the TV on, they got a warning, and they were saved because they rushed down to the basement where they went to an center closet under the stairwell. In my basement, I have a closet area. Well, it's encased in sheetrock, which is not much, but at least it's an inner room. And they went down there, and they survived when the rest of the house was collapsed. So yeah, you have to have a weather radio. I have to set my weather radio, which I haven't done yet, to the right channel and all that. It stays on constantly, but it doesn't make any sound until there's an emergency, and then it starts squawking. So you got to do things like that. And also, weather flooding, Michael, what you can do and what I need to do. Well, I'm in pretty good altitude, but for those people, and there are many of them across the country who are susceptible to flooding, epic flooding, and they should have rafts. They should have pontoon rafts or any kind of flotation devices, even those life vests that are activated and inflated by a CO2 cartridge. You pull the cord and the cartridge instantly inflates the raft. We talked about this in the last show that we had together, Michael, where people should have these in their car because you could find yourself, even the safest driver who turns around not to drown can find himself in a flash flood in a matter of minutes. The car's floating. He's about to die. And he has to get out of the car. So, roll down the window before the battery is killed by the